Hey everybody, we've got a big surprise today, and I'm so excited to bring back my friend Laura Pack, who is the CEO founder of Elixir Play in Australia. We met in Sydney. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back. Super exciting for this.
And we're going to talk about vibrators today because we have a very exciting announcement. But I want to encourage people to go back to episode 346, which is Dr. Dubinskaya, where we talk about the science and the papers and the published research on vibrators to help with blood flow, arousal, and even looking prelim data is looking like it helps genital urinary syndrome of menopause and lichen sclerosis, likely through a blood flow mechanism. So go check that one out, and also go check out episode 312, where Laura and I chat for the first time about vibrators. So if you're like, this is awesome and I just need all the data on vibrators. And also if you go back a lot, like previous years on my podcast, I have other vibrator episodes. So this is not the first, nor will it be our last in talking about vibrators today. Laura, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to break the news?
No, I'm going to let you do it.
You're going to let me break the news?
I'm going to let you break the news.
So I am collaborating with Laura on my very first vibrator. Not my first vibrator, but my first authorized vibrator, creation vibrator.
First designed vibrator.
My first designed vibrator. Thank you. So it is called the Explorer. And it is, this podcast is coming out on the 8th of February. So the vibrator is going to be released American Valentine's Day. Does Australia have the same Valentine? Do you guys have a Valentine's Day?
We do.
Is Valentine's Day worldwide?
It is worldwide.
Should I know this?
It's Valentine's.
Okay, Valentine's Day worldwide, like 13th, 14th, so the weekend after. So we're going to do pre-order links that you can find in the show notes here, and check out elixirplay.com. If you don't want to go to the pre-order link and you just want to go to elixirplay.com, because this pre-orders are up now. They will be shipping in February for the vibrator release Valentine's Day weekend worldwide. It is called the Explorer. I'm so excited about it because it's an external only, nothing's penetrating.
Yeah.
And I'm like so stoked about that.
It's amazing. Well, it's your design. I remember when we first started discussing it, and I think it's really important that your first vibrator that you've done is actually an external only. So it's amazing.
I love it. It's so badass. So my story, I'm going to tell a story about how we met and then you can change it. But okay. Rachel Rubin introduced us over email because I was coming to Sydney. So I was speaking at the Sydney Opera House, March 1st, 2025, which seems like a literal eon ago and is not quite even a year ago. And so she was like, Laura's amazing. You got to meet her. And I'm like, I'm not scheduling anything because I'm going to be in Sydney and probably won't be feeling well because time zones and blah. So like, I like put you off for a while in my storytelling world. Yeah. And then like, you were like, okay, but what about Thursday? Or what about like blah, blah, blah. Like you were super open to like any time I had available. And how I recall it, I was like, if you can go for a walk at like 4 p.m. on Thursday, like let's go for a walk. If you can meet me at the hotel. And you were like, yes, let's do it. And then I was like, oh, Laura's amazing. Is your story any different?
Well, but I mean, I don't know that I would call myself amazing. But no, same story. I mean, listen, you're you and you're amazing. And I've idolized you and looked up to you for so long because you're a true advocate in the sense of the word. And you teach people, you take the time to teach and educate. It's not just, hey, here's a product. You're like, here's the science behind it, which I really value as a human, and then in the business. But I remember that. And actually, it was so good because I feel like there's something also less scary about going for a walk with someone than let's sit down. And at that stage, we didn't even know we were going to do a product or anything. We were just like, it was like the hi, like, do we want to be friends? Mm-hmm. So that's easier to do over a walk.
Totally. Because like for midlife women in general, like finding new friends is hard. Like walk with people, walking and coffee.
Yeah.
That's my advice. So then you told me about your company and why you started it, and we'll share with us why you did that, and then we'll talk about how we got to Play-Doh in hotel lobbies.
We did. We've had a fun journey. So I started the brand. I had vaginismus, I had really painful sex, and I wanted to eventually was told to use vibrators for blood flow predominantly and to try to relax the muscles. And I decided in that moment that I couldn't find any brands on the market that resonated with me. And I wanted to create a brand from scratch that I had the control over, that I could use as an education platform, and also design the products myself and know the full quality control from start to finish. So designed the products, made plenty of mistakes along the way, learned a lot of things, but really, really stand by, what I do, how the products are created. But then doing this with you is amazing because there's only so much that I understand about our bodies and the science behind it. So it's been quite an incredible process to partner with you on how do we actually understand the anatomy and what people need, particularly what women need, but in partnerships or alone or all these things. It's been a really incredible journey.
I love it.
Yes, started with Play-Doh in a hotel
Started
lobby.
with Play-Doh. I don't remember what hotel we were at. It seemed like were we at the W?
It was the W.
It was a W.
So pretty. I remember sitting there and being like, "Oh, this is a really nice hotel." And then we were
super
sitting
pretty. So we went up to the bar and Laura brought like modeling clay. And I was like, because this was not like something I was like, oh, let me think about it. I was like, yeah, I want to. And I'd like said no to other people, like about collaborating with them. And some people just wanted my ideas and then we're going to go do their thing. And I'm like, you get smarter the longer you're in this. And I'm like, I'm not just going to give you my idea. Like, I'm going to like I want to do the product with somebody. And so like I'd like said no and was kind of on the journey of like, hey, it would be cool to do a vibrator someday. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do. And I knew that I see as a urologist, I see so many people with genital urinary syndrome of menopause. And there's no data that I've seen on this, but they say the average woman takes 7 or 8 years before she sees a urologist for bladder leakage or anybody for bladder leakage. And I bet you the data is the same for sex. Maybe it's moved up a couple of years, but like I see so many women where it's like, it's been 5 years, it's been 8 years. Like this isn't like it's been 2 weeks. It hurt 2 weeks ago, so I'm coming into the doctor. Like that's where I would love to see the needle moved. But like it's been so long that it's so painful or like inconceivable for them to put something inside their vagina that like we really just have to start with like blood flow, pleasure, getting back in our body. And I'm saying that like that's like simple and easy, but it's like the Monopoly game. You like can't pass go. You can't get to Park Place if you like don't work on just like arousal and that it feels good. And that just ties into like women not experiencing as much pleasure with heterosexual sex as the men do. Like that is well documented for anybody who's new here, right? And to really bring in blood flow, because we skip over the female arousal. We go straight from like desire to, I did an orgasm. And we completely ignore the arousal blood flow component, which you can't really, it's very hard to have an orgasm without blood flow. Like think of a erect penis, right? Harder to have an orgasm if the penis isn't turned on. So it's just like so excited. So I took the modeling clay and I'm like, I would make it vibrate on the labia majora. And I would make it so that people can put it on their clitoral body, like up on the clitoris, and just have vibration there and just feel it. And I knew like you have 4 products before the Explorer. Yeah. So it's like, high quality silicone, good motors and factories. Like we weren't starting like completely from scratch. You brought a lot of like trial and error already to this product. And so, cause I'm like, I don't want hard plastic. I don't want a weak motor. I don't want anything that's going to break down, because Lord knows I love using silicone lube with silicone toys. And like you need a good quality silicone for that. And so like to do a collab was a no-brainer, because I'm like, you bring like a functioning company with high quality vibrators, and I bring the like years and years of talking to women about issues with sex and pain with penetration and no arousal ever attempted, and like genital urinary syndrome of menopause and people being afraid of lube, and like bring all of that stuff to be like, I want an external vibrator where like you can just feel that, oh, this is what arousal is, this is what orgasm is. So I'll let you chat for a little bit while I'm unboxing, and then we'll show and tell. We'll show and tell for the people who can watch this on video.
You can show and tell. I think that's really true. And I think the things that we thought about was like, how does it feel to hold, right? So we kind of narrowed down, all right, this is the anatomical area we want to focus on. And then you've got to think about, okay, but how is it used, right? And what angle are you holding it? And how does it sit in your hand and feel comfortable? Because you essentially want it as an extension of your own body, right? So the idea is that you are exploring your own body. That's why we came up with the Explorer also, because when you see it, you'll understand why we've named it that. But the idea then was about really thinking through the design. And so we spent a lot of time kind of molding it, playing with it. I think we did quite a few video chats where like I'd hold it and we had an anatomical model of the clitoris and we'd be working out, okay, well, that's great. And it's great when it works anatomically, but then how does it feel as well? So again, you got to think about all these things because we're talking to people, and particularly to women that haven't necessarily engaged with their bodies in a really long time and might have not felt safe to do so. And so we want to make this a really soft landing, if that makes sense, into kind of working your way up to using a vibrator and exploring your own body. So we spent a ton of time doing that, going backwards and forwards. We had a lot of models made so that we could really work it through. So when you see this final product, I guess what we're both trying to get at is there's a lot of thought into every single detail around this, both from an anatomical, but also from a human perspective of what does this feel like and how do you use it. That I don't know for you, but for me, I'm so proud of that because we really spent a ton of time. This has been a year in the making to get it right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I remember there was a lot of back and forth about, so we kind of have a divot on one side. So one side has a little divot in the middle of it, and the goal of that is to put that over the clitoris. But you can't have the divot too deep because then it's not going to touch the clitoris, right? Because the other stuff's going to sit on it like a plate. But then if the divot's too deep, you're not going to experience any vibration on the clitoris. So it's like, how deep should that be? No, let's make that more shallow. Let's make that more shallow. And then the other side, if you flip it around, it has a little bit of a ridge, like a very gradual, there's no sharp corners, like a very gradual rise of a ridge in the middle of it. And so you can turn that and actually have that sit in and vibrate on the labia minora. So just sitting right at the entrance of the vulva, labia minora. And it's like so thoughtful that we did that. I'm like, so you can use this at any angle. Yeah. I have to unpack it because now I
think you should open it.
Okay, so here's the box for people who are on audio. Just go to the website Elixir Play, you can see it. But for people, if YouTube allows this, which they should because it's education, this is the box for the Explorer, and it's a nice little beautifully packaged box. And on the inside of it, thank you so much for purchasing the Explorer. And then it sits in this beautiful box, and you can see it's a beautiful, beautiful. I think this is indigo. What's the official color of this?
And remember, it's indigo because that's what everyone voted for when you asked.
Yeah, we had you guys vote. For people who are new to me, we had you guys vote. So follow me on Instagram for fun things. So it's really palm size. If you think I think of what's one serving of protein, and they're like palm size serving of like chicken and fish. It's like this is literally palm sized. So again, extension of your hand and your body, you can hold it and it's palm size. And you can see one side has this nice ridge, which can sit inside the vulva to vibrate on the labia minora. Amazing. And the top, I would call this the top. So the top of it's a little bit more of an acute angle. I won't say sharp, but an acute angle. So for direct vibration on the clitoris, I think that is absolutely fantastic. And then a little wider base on the bottom. But you can also flip it around and have the more pointed stuff be on the perineum. So be at the 6 o'clock spot, which needs a lot of blood flow. There's a lot of thinning there and a lot of pain there. For a lot of people, put your vaginal estrogen at that 6 o'clock spot. It notoriously gets dry and irritated as we lose our hormones. And then you can see on the other side, it's got this nice kind of divot to go over the clitoral body, just on the tops, just on your mons pubis, kind of sit over the clitoral body and have vibration. And it's a nice strong motor, which I like because the
strong without being like, I think I spoke about this on the last one, that we don't want lawnmowers, right? We don't want it to sound
lawnmowers. No, it's not. It's very quiet. That's
quiet, but it's strong.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people don't understand like how incredibly responsive the pelvic nerves are to vibration. And thank you to all of the neuroscientists who have researched that before us. Just kind of validating what we're like, oh, vibrators work. We're like, yeah, because those nerves are actually incredibly tuned to vibratory sensation, which is like the neuroscience nerd in me coming through. Anything else you want to say about the size of it, the design of it?
I mean, I just think, I'm so excited to launch it so we can get feedback, and we do want feedback on it. We really, we've tested it with lots of people feeling it, touching it, and holding it. The silicone's like, I've got one here too. It's just so soft. Like, it's
It's
actually really
soft.
hard to explain because, yeah, but it just sits so comfortably. It's a really beautifully designed product, and I think, what we want to really work on is helping people understand that using vibrators is good for your sexual health. Like, it's really good for your sexual health. It's good for blood flow. It's good
Mhm.
for arousal. And this is not offensive. This does not look like a penis. This does not in any way interfere with a partner. This is about using to explore your own body with or without your partner.
Yeah.
But
You
just
could leave this on your nightstand and have somebody walk into the bedroom and not be worried that there's actually even a vibrator. Like
totally,
people wouldn't know.
yeah, not at all. This
That's
does
my
not look
unless they have one, then they'd be like touche.
exactly.
I love it. I mean, to me, I'm like, we don't make fun of men for using Viagra, right? It's like a tool for sexual health, and it's
Totally.
like vibrators are a tool for sexual health.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
When I feel like recently there's definitely been more talk about it, but this is one of the things, right? Is that, you're a medical professional, you've studied this and know that this is right. This is not just an influencer saying, use a
Yep.
vibrator that I love, right? There's actual medical science behind it. We lose our hormones, we're experiencing pain, our blood flow's been depleted, and we know there's some data, there'll be more data coming out hopefully soon, but we know that the nerve endings over time just don't respond the same way. But to your point, they do respond to vibration. So there's actual medical reasons to use this is not just two people deciding, oh, we want to make vibrators and do things. There was proper thought behind it and anatomy. And to your point, I think, by stimulating these specific areas, that's what's more likely to increase arousal, blood flow, all of those things. So that's why, I can tell people when I was having those conversations with you, you were so adamant that this is the anatomy that I want to work with. And then the product was designed. It wasn't, you didn't sit there with the, clay and Play-Doh and be like, I'm just randomly. You were very specific about, right, this is what people are coming to me with. This is what I want to focus on. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
super
and I think so many people are, and this already because this is a lot of your customers, of like, it's my first vibrator, right?
yes.
Like, what do I do? What's my first vibrator? And it's like, you want to, nothing on the internet prepares people for like, try this first, do this first, like. And so I really thought, like, because eventually I would like to have a range. I would like to have like a beginner vibrator, an intermediate, all comers vibrator, pun intended, and then like the advanced vibrator of like, hey, if you know what you're doing, this one's for you, right? And to really be like, the first one has to be the beginner. It has to be approachable for everybody. It needs to be comfortable for everything. I mean, this thing would feel excellent on a penis as well, and a perineum and a scrotum. Like, it just feels really good on a breast and a nipple. Like, it can go on all body parts for all people, and it's really not intimidating. Again, it doesn't look like a vibrator in the traditional sense. It doesn't look phallic, and it's very like, not when you see a phallic vibrator, like the goal is to put it in the vagina, right? And this is like, there's no real goal except for experiencing blood flow, experiencing being in your body, experiencing what arousal might be, because I guarantee you a lot of people don't know, like, oh, that's what arousal is. And a lot of people rush things too. It's like, no, just we're just going to chill out and let a vibrator be on your body for a little bit, and just like learn to tolerate that and be curious about that and see what feels good and see what's too much. And like, it's a learning experience. And I really wanted an approachable beginner vibrator. There is a company on the market that shall not be named, and they're kind of positioning themselves as the midlife vibrator. And it's a effing huge, phallic, pointy at the end, hard plastic, and incredibly expensive, multiple hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, this is literally the most wrong thing for this group of women that could be created, for every single reason that I just pointed out. And it's like, to be so thoughtful in who we're trying to help And I would say even for like, moms who are like, what's the first vibrator to get my younger daughter? If you have a younger person who hasn't had penis and vagina intimacy, like this is approachable for them. We don't have to put anything on the inside. So it's really like beginner, simple, all comers. And the other thing I really like about it is how it's so soft on the outside, but more firm on the inside, which is really kind of what body parts are, right? Like that is what a finger is. That is what mouths are. That is what a penis is. It's like body parts are soft on the outside with firmer on the inside. And we like literally, to your point of this is an extension of one's body. It's designed that way.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think people who aren't beginners can use it too, right? Like it's not about just the one, but it is.
I'm just as happy with this as a beginner is.
Same here.
Enough said. And it's not this is not in my first dozen of vibrators. Enough said. That's all I will share with people. But yes, to your point.
But so excited to get it out there and get feedback and hear, the best part of what I do is getting people messaging saying how much it's transformed their lives. And it's just about giving it a go, right? The hardest part, excuse the pun, is taking the initiative to just give it a try and doing that. Because I haven't had anyone be like, oh, I really regret purchasing this vibrator. Well, they certainly don't email me about it. But I do get a ton of emails of, I went from not enjoying sex at all to now being able to enjoy. I went from experiencing pain to not experiencing pain, or now I actually have arousal. And, I can feel things that I haven't felt for 20, 30 years. So that's the goal.
There's something to, in stepping back to what desire is, like you can't desire mushy, smelly chicken. You can't desire hitting your thumb with a hammer. Like you're not, the way dopamine works in the brain is if it's boring, if it doesn't involve orgasm, if it doesn't involve pleasure, you're not going to desire it. And there's something about sex feeling effing good that makes you want to do it again. Yeah. Right. And so, I think so many, especially women, beat themselves up about not having desire for something that isn't pleasurable in the first place. And so it's like, you got to back up. And anybody who treats women with low desire, you kind of have to back up and ask that question, because the male centric view is fix the desire first, because obviously sex is good.
Yeah.
And I think women who are in this space and in this industry and in this healthcare, we understand, no, the sex is not always good. So don't think that fixing desire is going to lead to good sex, right? And oftentimes you kind of have to flip that and be like, you must create something worth desiring.
Yeah, that's so true.
Before we go, we got amazing Q&As from people on Instagram, because I posted in my stories that I was going to do a podcast about vibrators, and they're great questions. So we're going to get to it. But before we get to it, I really want to address for a second the role of consent and safety in pleasurable, wonderful sex. Do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, well, I think, look, it's a huge part of why I started this. And it's a pillar of what the business stands for, what I stand for as a human. But I think one of the big things is we talk a lot about consent, and that makes a lot of sense with a new partner, but that actually also applies in a relationship as well. And this idea that just because you're in a relationship, there's assumed consent is not a thing. It doesn't exist.
Assumed safety.
Or assumed safety. So I think, when I started doing this, one of the key reasons why a lot of people experience pain is because the prevalence of sexual assault is so high, something like 20%, which is insane.
Well, right? And that's reported. I mean, just double it.
So it's probably even higher than that. Yeah. Absolutely. And, that's a huge reason often why then sex becomes not pleasurable, because your body's not dumb. It's like, hang on a second, this was not good. I don't want to do this again. And so whether you think about it or not, it does, out of its own goodness, it shuts down. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's really hard to come back from. So I just think it's really important to take a minute to understand that we are all about consent in all forms in every relationship, whether you're meeting someone for the first time or you've been in a relationship for 10, 20 years. You have to want and acknowledge and be engaged in the process of saying yes and being part of it. And if you're not, then you need to go and speak to someone, or should not need to, but you should go and speak to someone and get, get some support on that. There are lots of places that you can get support, but it's really important that we all acknowledge that this is not, there's no such thing as assumed consent in any situation. And we both feel very much that we want to acknowledge that and be part of that, because we do promote that you can use this with your partner, but use it with your partner if that's what you want to do, not because someone's forcing you to do it.
I love that. And I think the other thing people think of when they think of safety is like, do I feel safe with my partner? And you're like, yeah, of course, we live in a house together and I've known him for 20 years and blah, blah, blah. But I think what a lot of people don't think about, which I think is very pertinent to the current shitstorm of the world as we know it, is, do I feel safe in this world? And do I feel safe as a woman in this world? Do I feel safe as a woman who's watching what men are doing to women in this world? Right. And I think we must talk about that, because even if I'm like, I'm perfectly safe with my partner, I know I'm safe and I know that I am loved and I know that that's all good. My body has feeling what I've been watching, what I've been reading, what's going on social media. And there's a level of safety as a woman with sex that, frankly, I think we do not talk about enough. And thank God for podcasts, so we can actually talk about this, not on platforms where they don't even let us say our body parts and vulva. But I really just want to acknowledge that for everybody, of even if you feel safe with your partner, you might not feel safe in the world as a woman, knowing the harm that has been done to women in their bodies. And I would just want to acknowledge that for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so true.
So true. And I think part of what clearly what you're doing with your company and what I'm doing with my advocacy and, my clinic and the books is like, I hate the word reclaiming, because sometimes you just want to say claiming, but it's like, sex should be for women. It should be for everybody. It should be in a wonderful, pleasure, loving, like, it's such a weapon, and it's also such joy. And it's massively complex, and we're adults and we can handle complex things. But sometimes we just need to put a little acknowledgement to that and some words to that, to be like, why make sex toys in a world that uses sex as a weapon against women, right?
Yeah.
Is because sex is for you when done lovingly and supportively and consensually, and prioritizing you and your body and the amazing things that your body can do to feel pleasure. And I just think that it sometimes looks like a dichotomy,
Yes,
right? Or a polarization, because everything is shut down in return. Like, you can't say certain words on your website because then your website gets blocked, right? Like, and the word.
Well, and I think there's this idea that it's sexualized, right? But it's not that it's sexualized, it's empowering. There's actually a really big difference, but through different lenses, it looks like different things. So the lens that we're coming at is, we're creating a tool and a device that supports you on your journey for you to enjoy sex. But what the world might see that as is, you're into this kinky, sexualized world. Oh, this person wants to get into crazy sex and all these things. And that's not what we're about. So it seems kind of raw that we're bringing a new product in at a time when the world is really confronting and there's all these things going on. But actually it's the opposite of that, right? It's so that you can find a safe, secure way to be able to enjoy sex again in your own comfort.
I love that. Should we do some Q&A?
Yes.
Okay, these questions are so good.
Rapid fire it?
Yeah, we're going to rapid fire it. Can vibrators do any long-term damage?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen any research that's done that, but I'm not actually sure. Have you seen?
Yeah, the one I quote often is Ishwish at Long Beach. I think it was like 2 years ago now. Some researchers looked at what type of vibration causes nerve damage, and they had to basically go to jackhammer operators, because that's a hell of a vibration that can over time cause nerve damage. But even a jackhammer doesn't. People are like jackhammer operators for life. And so people argue well, that's hands and this is genitals. But they basically compared the level of, velocity or hertz or however you measure intensity of jackhammers versus vibrators. And no, basically no. If you use them as they're not advised, if you stick them up places that you cannot retrieve them,
different story.
Different story.
Can't comment on that.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about does a vibrator made in a factory that makes vibrators. So these are all very standardized motor settings and stuff. No, they should not cause long-term damage. Ideas on incorporating conversations about vibrators in our medical practice.
Oh, that's a good. I mean, I've got ideas, but you're the medical
No, you go.
practice.
Because you just created a handout. So especially for the people who ask this, like, where can they get this
I
handout?
did. I think it's about, so I think they're different things, right? When you're walking into, let's say, a sex store, you're going in with the intention to buy something like that. And so the conversation's really about which one suits you. I think in a medical practice, the conversation needs to go back to what is the problem we're trying to address? And is the problem arousal? Or is the problem desire? Is the problem penetration? Is the problem pain? And so for me, this is part of a suite of tools that should be offered in the same way that we talk about hormones, right, which should always be a good starting point, and lubrication, which should always be a good starting point, but it seems to stop there. And then we don't actually think about devices. So the way I see it is it should just be in addition to and an extension of all the other things that we're talking about that are tools to support women.
I love it. I would add, it's very hard to talk about sex, especially with a stranger, if you don't, like, if you're in, and I'm talking from a clinician standpoint now, if this person's brand new and you've got 10 minutes, don't be like, just use a vibrator.
Yeah.
Next.
No. With
Right?
a bottle
Like,
of wine. No.
Yeah, a bottle of wine, vibrator, new boyfriend. Like, it comes across as very dismissive.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm like, you have to have resources to send people to. So I would say my book, You Are Not Broken, the podcast, You Are Not Broken, safe websites like Elixir Play. Because if you just say, like, go on Amazon to get a vibrator, like, that is shit for shit, and a race to a bottom on shit quality shit on Amazon and vibrators, right? So that's what I think about, like, a curated place. You know, I have a place in my town that's a curated sex store, women owned, and so that's a nice reference to refer people. So it's more like have places to refer people to,
Yes.
and judge the audience in the room, right? Like, you don't know if this person's a sexual abuse survivor. You don't know if they have untreated GSM. And again, if you haven't done a pelvic exam and you don't know, and you, heaven forbid, recommend this thing that's being marketed for midlife women that's multiple hundreds of dollars, hard plastic, pointy at the end, and massive, like, that's the wrong vibrator for that person. Right.
100%.
And so to me, I'm like, yes, absolutely incorporate it. And you can fall back on the fact that there are scientific papers published. Literally, there's one called Is It Time to Incorporate Vibrators into Medical Practice?
Exactly.
I think that's Alexandra Dubinskaya again. Sorry, I'm killing your last name. But so it's like, this is published data, published research that it helps arousal. It would be like asking, like, is Viagra, like, should I talk about Viagra in my medical practice? I'm like, obviously you should.
Yeah.
Right? Because it helps man's sexual health. Like, obviously we should talk about vibrators in women, and vaginal estrogen, always vaginal estrogen, and always lube. So like you said, it's not just use vibrators. It's like, let's talk about sex. What issues do we have? Because otherwise it can be very dismissive to be like, just go get a vibrator.
Exactly.
Right? It's not good. Heard about a new product that was a stimulator versus vibrator. What's the difference? And do you know that brand or name?
I don't.
I don't either. What did you say the difference between a stimulator and a vibrator is? I think vibrators.
Well, I don't know. If I think of a
vibrators
stimulator,
stimulate.
I think of, like, medical devices that specifically kind of, like, I don't know, target an area, and then. But I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
Without
kind of
knowing
use
the brand, it would be hard to know.
That's what I'm like. Is it a website that's just saying stimulation instead of vibration? Like, vibration is one type of stimulator, because I would
Yes.
also then think, like, the clitoral air pulse devices or suction devices, they also stimulate, but they don't always vibrate.
Yes.
So to me, I'm like, I think those are kind of interchangeable. And
They are.
if somebody was
form of
like selling their
stimulation.
product as like a stimulator, it's not a vibrator, I'd be like, are we just using different words for kind of the same thing? That's my thought.
I would think the same.
Hypochlorous acid, good for cleaning vibrators.
Can't say I have ever heard of that in my life, so I'm going to
Me
go
either.
with no, because
Right, because it has acid in the word.
I mean, well, yeah, and we just don't know what materials. I mean, honestly, a little bit of soap and water will do. Like, it's not rocket science. I mean, they come with a bag. Keep it in the bag, and then it doesn't get dirty. Rinse it before you use it. Rinse it after you use it. You know, people that are trying to sell you really expensive toy cleaners, some toys maybe need that. These ones haven't. You know, if you can use them, great. Just clean them. That's the bottom line. Find a way to clean them.
I love it. I don't think you need anything specifically.
No, and
Like
just be careful
hands.
with the materials, right? If we haven't tested them, you don't know. So you don't want to, sometimes there's like microscopic changes that happen that aren't visible to the naked eye, but you don't want to ruin the material. So,
Okay. So gentle, like a gentle hand cleanser.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Are there any CBD lubes that you would recommend?
Oh, we don't have that here, so I don't know. And if
You don't
we do,
have CBD.
I don't think so.
Ah.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Do you know of any good ones?
Foria is a company that I have no affiliation with, but they've been doing some good work, and they do give me samples to hand out in my clinic, and they're kind of like the CBD natural kind of brand. To me, they seem very high quality. CBD can help, I think, with blood flow relaxation, so it's kind of popular. Certainly not necessary by any means. CBD being different than THC, both coming from the hemp plant, THC being the psychoactive one. Harder to get, or you have to get in a marijuana store to do things like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's necessary, but play around. Like, again, if everybody's like, what's the one lube? What's the one vibrator? And you're like, okay, for Tuesday. But like, it's the whole, especially if you maybe have the same partner for 20 years, like, you gotta switch it up a little bit somehow. And sometimes you just want to try a different lube or a different vibrator. That's fine. Can you use Elixir Play and the Explorer vibrators with oil-based lube, or will it degrade the silicone?
So we haven't done an official test with it. I'm actually trying to find somebody to test it. I haven't heard any negative feedback from oil-based lubes on the current products. But I can't specifically, so I can't 100% say, yes, you go for your life, right? Because we haven't tested it in an actual testing facility. It's actually really hard to find testing facilities that will, you can test a lubricant,
why don't you just take a bottle of oil-based lube, put the Explorer in it for 24 hours.
Yeah, get a microscope and check it.
Yeah,
so
or even just tactile,
full testing. I can't definitively say, but people are welcome to do what they do.
Well, I think the rule of wash it afterwards is going to take off a lot of issues. And I always the internet's like, don't use silicone lube with silicone toys, and I'm like, fuck it. If it's a good high quality silicone, fuck it. I hate water-based lubes personally.
Yeah,
they're sticky and they're cold, and that's not a turn on. So I'm always the one who, I literally in one of my books, I'm like, fuck it, life's too short. Silicone lube with silicone toys. And my friend Jen at Wink Wink Boutique in my town, who's actually been on my podcast multiple times, old episodes looking at toys and lube and all that stuff. She took a high quality silicone toy and put it in a vat of silicone lube overnight, and then took it out, and she's like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So if it's a poorer quality product, like a cheap plastic, like an Amazon product or a cheap silicone product, that might show more issues with it. But high quality. And what do I say when a high quality? I think a high quality vibrator is going to be over $100. I think to get a high quality motor and to get high quality silicone, you're looking at over $100. Yeah. I don't think it should be $380 or more. This thing is not being paid to do your taxes.
I agree with that.
But I think
you want it to be affordable, but at the same time, the reality is the costs are higher. You can absolutely make a really cheap vibrator. I know that. I've seen them. But at the end of the day, then you're compromising on something. It's the same as the design of this, right? There's always a compromise in something. We don't compromise on quality. That's just the reality.
I agree. And that's my benchmark. And it's been $100 for a while. I could probably upgrade due to current inflationary pressures.
Inflation is a tough game.
It's over $100, but it's certainly less than $300.
Yeah.
Is there a specific type of vibrator that you recommend?
Well, again, it depends on for what you're trying to use, right? So, I actually have a quiz on the website that I ask some questions that I can help people. We're going to be putting out more resources to support people based on the feedback that we get. But, for example, if you prefer external stimulation, which 70% of women do, then the Explorer is going to be amazing. If you specifically want penetration, there are other products that do that. If you want dual stimulation, then you need to go with a different product. So there's it really does depend on what it is you're looking for. And I think that's why it's really important to look at a range and, ask the questions in that. Because a lot of companies will be like, this is the best vibrator. And there is no such thing as
Bold.
the single best vibrator, because there is a single best vibrator for the specific reason that you want a vibrator for. Full stop. So don't believe the hype and stuff. And that's coming from someone who actually makes and sells vibrators. There is no such thing as the best.
I love that. You need to incorporate that into your marketing.
I should incorporate that.
There is no such thing as one specific vibrator. And that's why I like the beginner friendly.
Yes.
Right. And so it's not intimidating, and you get to the point where you're like, download the app and have it it's a lot, especially with privacy and person safety is I don't want something that can connect to the internet.
Exactly.
Frankly,
you don't want someone seeing the patterns that you're using.
Yeah. Or you hand somebody your phone for some reason and they open your vibrator app. You do you. But to me, I'm especially for beginners, that could be very intimidating things.
For sure.
Can you get a urinary tract infection from them?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, sure. You can get a UTI from anything.
I'm sure you can get
Says
a UTI.
the urologist.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you don't clean it, for sure, but I'm not sure outside of that.
If you don't clean it, if you go to the back end to the front end, right? So never put anything in or near the anus and then put it back up near the urethra without cleaning things or using separate toys. I think a lot of women, their microbiome is thrown off just because they aren't on hormones, or they're post-menopause not on hormones. That can cause it. It's just the microbiome gets a little bit, lubricious with sex. And so it's do you have it? I always think if you're getting UTIs from vibrators, or if you're getting UTIs from sex, or if you're getting UTIs from your partner, number one, the urologist is always is it actually a UTI? Is this actually bacterial?
Yeah.
Or does it feel like a UTI? Because the pelvis can't tell you this is an infection versus this is inflammation, irritation, tears, burning with peeing from friction. There's so many things that feel the same because our body wasn't designed to tell us, hey, this is a bacteria, or this is genital urinary syndrome of menopause. So I think a lot of women get treated with antibiotics for things that aren't bacterial. Yeah. So a good urologist or urogynecologist is always going to suss that out. If you go in and you're hey, it's, X, Y, and Z is causing UTIs, is the first thing we are always is it actually a UTI? Or is it something else? What's the exam show? Are you on hormones? Are you an age where you should be considering hormones to have your microbiome be balanced? Because a healthy microbiome prevents urinary tract infections. People don't know that. If we're talking over anybody's head, if we're talking over anybody's head, I have over 300 other podcasts that you can go listen to that'll catch you up. But for the most part, I think most people are staying with us pretty good. All right, let's see if there's any more questions from the internet. Oh, if I use mine often, can I become desensitized?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So again, I don't know. Have you seen data? I haven't seen data. And I think, so I can only talk about this on an emotional level, right? I haven't seen the data. I think that it's easy to become dependent on, I love this feeling, so I'm going to have this feeling, right? And vibration is not what any human body can do, right? So it's at a level that isn't possible for, when you're talking about external in particular, right? It's just different. Does that mean it's better or worse? Well, that's an individual thing. So I have heard people that get to a point of they just want that feeling. Are they not able to orgasm without that? I'm not sure that I can comment on that specifically. I haven't heard that, but I think there are people that just prefer the feeling of using a vibrator. More so, as well as I haven't necessarily heard instead. So I've not heard someone say to me, well, I only ever want to use a vibrator for life, so I'm never going to be in a relationship with a human again because I love my vibrator. I can't say that I've had that.
They don't replace humans.
They don't replace humans, and they don't replace human connection. So I think that that's really important. And that's why we spend a lot of time, this should not be an ego threat to any partner, because it's not supposed to be instead of, it's supposed to be as well as, so that you can both enjoy the moment more.
And when I hear that, I've yet to hear a lesbian say, I've yet to hear a same-sex couple be like, I'm really intimidated by somebody using a vibrator, right? It tends to be, in this conversation, it tends to be the woman is afraid or worried or concerned, pick your verb, that the man might be intimidated, demasculinized, X, Y, and Z. And I'm usually have you asked them?
Yeah.
Because what we do a lot of times is we assume without checking the actual facts.
Yeah.
And so I would say the first thing first is communicate.
Yeah.
I use I words. I'm worried that you might be intimidated by this. I'm concerned that you might think that, I don't need you or I don't love you or blah, blah. So always I questions when we ask possibly vulnerable questions. The average human, and I would say the majority of humans, want their partner to experience pleasure because they know if you like it, you might want to do it again. Right. So not wanting to use a vibrator because I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z kind of flies in the face of most partners wanting you to like it so that, number one, you want to do it again. But number two, stereotypically, men love seeing their partner have pleasure. And women, we need to get that through women's heads. You ask the male partner, do you like watching your partner have pleasure? And they're like, yes, that is a massive turn on. So again, it's adult sex ed that we never got of here women are worried when really it's it's all good. It's all good. For the most part. And if it's not all good, that is a conversation to have instead of a reason to not use a vibrator or explore or this is personal growth. This is a conversation that needs to be had, I would say. Going back to the desensitized, so the data I've seen is no. Again, it kind of leads into the nerve damage question of no, you will not become desensitized. That said, as we age, we often need more stimulation for pleasure, right? The wind can blow and give a penis an erection when they're 16, right? Wind blowing doesn't tend to do that to a 60-year-old man. So that's one example. So you tend to need more as you age. That doesn't mean that vibrator's desensitizing you. And the other thing is lots of technology in our life helps us get jobs done better or easier. I'm not addicted to my electric toothbrush. I'm not desensitized because I use a computer. I'm not ruined because I like to drive to the grocery store instead of walk and carry things back, right? So it's this almost it gets kind of into this technology shaming of technology is designed to improve things and make your life better. And we don't tell people that oh no, you're just desensitized to walking now because you prefer driving your car, right? Of there's a level of orgasm that technology designed to orgasm can provide that human body parts can't. That doesn't mean that's bad or not good or all the things. Just a car can get you to Wisconsin way faster than walking. That doesn't mean the car's the problem.
Yeah, 100%.
So I just like to compare vibrators to other technology and be what are we shaming here?
Yeah.
What are we shaming? The sex? Yes. Okay. Can you get toxic shock syndrome from having one inserted for too long, hours?
I have absolutely no idea.
Laura's Kelly, I did not know the level of questioning this was going to happen. So for people who don't know, toxic shock syndrome is from a bacteria. I forget, it's a strep, maybe? I forget. But it's a type of bacteria that develops in old tampons that were super absorbent tampons, and people were leaving these tampons. This is when I was a kid. And these labels are still on tampons. So they made tampons so effing absorbent and so effing effective that you could just keep them in for a day or two. But the problem with that is it would house bacteria, and the byproduct of this bacteria created something called toxic shock syndrome, and you could actually get very sick because it's bacteria buildup. So I would say I'm not certain why vibrators are staying in for a long time. I know that they're not tampons, but certainly if anything was in for a long time, you would worry about a biofilm building up on it. So to me, I'm I'm not sure most vibrators are designed to stay inside a vagina for a long period of time. So normal use, I would say, is very safe.
Yeah.
On that. Okay. Do you have anything further to add about
no,
that
I think
question?
I'm good.
Okay, we're good. Pass. Okay. Which one do you recommend for your husband to use on you?
Oh.
Not you personally, Laura. Don't give us
an
individual
I
sex advice.
understand. I get the question.
Okay.
Again, I think it depends on what you're looking for, right? Do you want it to penetrate or not penetrate? So, depending on that, if you're going for non-penetration, well, amazing, we have the solution for you here. If you want penetration, then the Explorer. Sorry, for those of you that weren't following along, I did just hold it up and move it, so sorry. But yeah, I think it depends if you're looking for that. Again, if you're looking for dual, then you want the more rabbit style, which would be on my products, an amethyst, right? Or an emerald if you want something slimmer. So I think you've really got to think about what do you like, right? So not what is he wanting to see, what do you like? What will you enjoy? And then what will you feel safe for them to use? So, for example, back in the day, actually, some sex workers said to me that they didn't want, I think we spoke about this last time, like they didn't want long internal vibrators because when someone uses it on you, they don't know your limits, right? So they might push it deeper than what you would naturally do. So there's just things to consider for what do you feel comfortable with? What are you trying to achieve? And then kind of go from there. But the way to turn that question around is what do you want your partner to use on you? Not what do you want them to use on you?
Oh, power move. I love that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I want to normalize sex with erectile dysfunction, right?
Yep.
And so we might want a more phallic thing that penetrates. Or we might want to use the penis. And so then maybe we want some just external stimulation to have a value add instead of a replacement. Right. So again, I think it goes back to like, what are the goals? What do we want? And remember, just for people neurologically, how orgasms work, the more nerves stimulated that go to the pleasure center in the brain, the more intense the orgasm is experienced. So the more you have like butt, breasts, vulva, clitoris, internal vagina, earlobe, right? Like the more super highways are going to the spaceship for the orgasm, the more easy, intense, whatever words you want to use. So versus, I mean, so many people are just put something in the vagina and expect an orgasm to happen. And it's like, that's hardly even using a road, let alone a highway, let alone multiple highways to get to Valhalla. And so what my point is the vibrator is like a value add because it's going to be able to target another superhighway. So we might still want to be with our partner and have penetrative intercourse, but put this on our breast or put this on the clitoris or put this somewhere else where you're stimulating more nerve endings towards the pleasure center. And that, my friends, is science.
Love it. Mic drop.
Mic drop. Okay. Let's see which one should I buy my daughter as her first?
Oh, that's really tough. So, I mean, I think you alluded to it a bit as well. I think, I do think the Explorer is a really beautiful intro product. I think, again, it depends. Look, when you're buying something for someone else, this is where consent matters, right? So, just dropping a vibrator on your daughter without having a conversation, or if that's your relationship, great. But for most people, you want to have a conversation. So I think actually talking about what are you trying to achieve, right? So have they had penetration before? Because if they haven't had penetration before, I wouldn't recommend using a penetrative vibrator. Are you looking for external orgasm and things like that? So again, it's really hard to answer any questions around which one should I buy in this situation because there's probably a bit more conversation, and always happy to have a chat. And, you can reach out, you can DM us, you can, on the website, there's a chat function, which comes to myself or one of my colleagues that can talk to you about it. But I think, probably for younger audiences, you want to go with something that's more external, basic, and, Kelly designed this with that in mind. So
Yep. Blood flow first. Because to me, I'm like, I want her to understand her pleasure, her arousal, her body, and that sex isn't just putting something in a vagina.
Yep.
And so I think the Explorer is really nice for that, to be like, hey, why don't we learn how to have an orgasm without putting anything in our vagina first?
Yep.
Like, let's just experience that. And then you can always move up from there. So that's how I would think about it. Recommendations for affordable vibrators.
I mean, I guess it depends on affordable. I mean, I think mine start at $99 and they go up depending on that. I think often, not always, there's a relatively direct correlation with quality and price to a point. And then there's to your point, there's people that really take advantage of that. So, once you're getting into the multiple hundreds of dollars mark for a vibrator, maybe sometimes people do have technology in it that they've paid for specifically that, it costs a ton to develop tech that's inside it. So, maybe, but outside of that, for just a regular vibrator, I just think it's important, you see ones at supermarkets and you see things, and you and I spoke about this before, I have a real issue with cheap quality vibrators because you've just taken the initiative to actually transform this hugely important part of yourself, and then you use a shitty vibrator that breaks or cracks or doesn't work or is loud or is obnoxious or all these things, and
it's hard and cold.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just not designed for our bodies, right? Like, our bodies are soft. They're not designed to have a rigid, especially, in our vulval areas, they're not designed to have rigid. So I think, if these products are too expensive for you, by all means look at other brands, but just take into consideration that, how are the materials made, what quality controls are done. There's a lot of things to think about.
I mean, and I would add, I would support what I said earlier of a price point. You're looking at $100 plus for a quality one. Because if you buy a shitty one and you don't like it and your sex life is no better, well, you just wasted money. And if you buy a shitty one and it breaks, you wasted money. And if you buy a shitty one and it hurts you, you've wasted money, right? So look at it as like, again, what are you worthy of? Like, good God, this is your orgasm. Like, I'm as frugal as the next lady. I don't think things should be ridiculous, but like, do it right, honey. How to store them discreetly?
So they come with bags. So I always put them, they're like silk bags. Look, depending on the vibrator, something like the Explorer is pretty discreet on its own. But I think putting it in a little bag is great if you don't want it. My bags say Elixir Play, not that anyone necessarily knows what that means, but you could just have any bag, put it in your purse. But just put it somewhere where it's sealed to some extent, that's not just sitting with dust collecting on it all the time.
Or, I mean, we've seen these things. My dog, not my dog personally, but people will write in and they'll be like, my dog got my vibrator. It's like, dude, you've spent some money on that. Like, it's not a chew toy. Keep those things separate. Thoughts on new suction toys aids versus more traditional vibrations?
Look, you and I spoke about that before. I personally am not as much of a fan of suction because I think there's something in vibration that itself is supportive of women, particularly as they get older, particularly as they've had pain. Suction, for me, one of the challenges is whichever area it is that it's suctioning, that's the area that it suctions, and it doesn't give you that overall kind of experience. So if it's that spot, great. But when you move it, it's relatively noisy and can be somewhat painful. So I personally am not a fan. I know lots of people that really do enjoy it, and that's great. And if you have a great experience with it, amazing, right? Like, not here to shame anyone into what they enjoy, just on, a fundamental level of what I've looked at in research and seen, the actual vibration is what creates the arousal and blood flow from what I've seen, which, may not be someone's experience.
Love it. I would add that they are phenomenal. I'm talking about like the air pulse suction devices, phenomenal, but they are one-trick ponies. Like, and what I mean by that is like, sex is something to be enjoyed. If you want a light switch with an orgasm, my God, these things do the job. And I've talked to multiple people about this. They're like, I actually kind of want to enjoy sex for a while. Whereas like this thing, you put this thing on, boom, orgasm. And you're like, oh my God, my body just had an orgasm, but like you weren't even like into the game that much, right? So like, it's amazing technology at stimulating orgasm, but it might not feel often like the best. But then for some people, they're having sex, they've got their vibrator, they've got their partner, everything's going well, and you just kind of want to finish, or you're like, hey, let's if you're overstimulated or you're under, whatever you need to finish, these things can be phenomenal. So to me, I'm like, again, going back to the like, maybe don't just have one type, right? So I think but I would say, my opinion is the suction air pulse devices should not be your first vibrator.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's an advanced level. That's more of a master's degree.
Okay. Cool.
Then
the future. She's prepping you for what the product's going to be like.
Right.
A few years from now.
Totally. What is a safe, trusted brand? No obvious packaging. I'm not sure what that means. And healthy ingredients, no toxins.
I think when you're choosing brands, you want to make sure there's no phthalates in it. I think that you want to check that they've had different checks on them. So like, I say body safe. It's been through a number of different things. It uses medical grade silicone. You do food grade silicone. There's different things like that. So I think that's really important. Discreet packaging. I don't know. So people ask that from me. Like, it gets packaged in a warehouse in a mailer bag and then it comes out to you. So it doesn't come out with a giant truck that gets delivered that says
the truck is like vibrator delivery only.
Yeah, with a giant dildo on the front of it. No, don't do that. But at some point it's going to say, who sent it. So it depends if you consider that discreet or not, right? We all have our own things, but for the most part, they're pretty significant. I can't speak for other brands with how they send it. That's how I do it. But I think you really want to look at what level silicone they've used, and have they checked things that, like back in the day, phthalates were used by everyone. They're generally not now, but has been tested to not.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and I think that goes again to the price that you're going to pay. The higher brands are going to care a lot more about quality.
Yep.
Than just trying to race to the bottom to get the $12 vibrator. Might not be something you want to put near or around or in the vagina.
Yeah, for sure.
I would answer that question with saying Elixir Play.
Thanks.
I've tried all your products. They're all fantastic.
Thank you. Me too. I'm a big fan.
Well, that's good.
So you can't, in fairness, in my house, we always joke about it. There's probably no drawer that's safe from not finding vibrators in it, because I have samples everywhere and different things. If you feel like, why did I just open the kitchen drawer and find them? Right. I was like on the phone, and then the cleaners come and you want to hide it or something. Mm-hmm. And so that it's a treasure trove of experiences in the house. But that's
and I get that people want to be discreet, and I respect it. And I would just caution of like normalizing sex, keeping it private.
Yes.
But normalizing sex.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And understanding it's not black and white and it's not all or none, but like, I don't need to see anything else. Keep it private. This is your private life, but normalize that adults can enjoy pleasurable sex, and that's not something to be shamed about. I did a new thing this year. Well, in 2025, I actually curated or culled or got rid of, I have so many vibrators because, I like to see what's new on the market, and maybe I was developing one and wanted to try other things out and blah, blah, blah. So I finally I was like, never will I ever use this effing thing. I'm going to get rid of it. So
you did the giant vibrator cull.
I did the giant 2025 vibrator cull.
Fantastic.
I know.
You Marie Kondoed it.
You get to the point, where you're like, am I ever going to use this thing?
Yeah.
No, get rid of it. And now everybody's like, which ones did you get away? I'm like, we will not know.
Yeah.
We will.
Now you're gonna have 1,000 people saying to you, "No, you got to share this."
I know. They're like, "Which ones did you throw away?" I'm like, "Okay, that's personal information." But I'm very excited to have the Explorer now. Truthfully, this manifest this. This needs to win good housekeeping if they do such a thing. Oprah Daily Menopause Awards. This.
We're putting it out there into the universe that we feel like this is the design.
This is award winning. We just have to see which award's going to happen first.
Okay.
Because it's so thoughtful.
Yeah.
We literally created the solution for the problem that we see every single day.
Yeah. Couldn't have said that better.
I love it. Okay, so this is going to be releasing on February 8th. Then Laura and I are going to be in Long Beach for the ISHWISH, International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health annual conference, Valentine's Day weekend. And we are doing a release party that is invite only because it's small and it's intimate, but it's going to be a lot of the sex educators, urologists, people in the sex med space. So follow us on social media to see us all do a big release party for this, and get your pre-orders in now at Elixir Play. And we will put a link in the show notes. Anything else you wanted to say, Laura?
No, I'm super excited, and thank you for doing this. I can't wait to hear how many women honestly get help because of the work that you put into this. So super excited to be partnering with you on it, and so excited to start getting feedback from people of how they're enjoying it and transforming.
I'm getting very excited. The fact that it came. So Laura sent it to me. One final story. Laura sent it to me express ship. And Laura's in Australia and I live on the West Coast of America. So she sent it express so I could get it before we go to ISHWISH. And so they didn't deliver it because I didn't sign it. And then I was texting her and I'm like, oh my God, does every American have to sign from their postal service guy when their vibrator comes? We can't have this. This is ridiculous. People work.
The answer is no. The answer is no.
The answer is no. So the mailman came to my house and I had signed my name, and he's like, just so you know, if it's sent express from a different country, you have to sign for it, excluding Canada. And so I was like, okay, that's why I had to sign for it, because we express shipped it to make sure I could get one and see
well,
it.
They're
and use it.
actually, so for everyone's information, they're actually in the US. They're at a warehouse in the US.
They'll be
They
shipped
get
from the
shipped. So
US.
you will not have that problem. But it was quite funny because we're like, I was waiting for you to have it because I was like, I want you to see the final thing and unbox it and everything. And it was just
a big like, where is it? Why is it under lockdown? It was like a very expensive computer being delivered. Like, we had to be here. The mailman actually texted me. And I'm like, this, and then I'm like, he's a stranger. I
love that we've just discussed this after. Is it discreet? Well, the mailman will text you and let you know that your vibrator has arrived. Make sure you're home.
Like, it was so laughable, like the level of security for this vibrator, right? But I'm like, I'm not going to tell the mailman what he just needed me to get a signature on. That came all the way from Australia.
One day you'll be sitting with the mailman and you'll be like, I'm just going to tell you, remember that signature? Let me show you what
copious amount of vibrators being delivered to my house. So funny. All right, everybody, for those who are going to be at Ishwish and support this and are going to tell your patients about it, thank you so much. To anybody who's completely new to the vibrator scene, you made it through an hour-long podcast on vibrators, so much congratulations to you. And to any partner who is supporting their partner and using a vibrator, I love you. I see you. Thank you for making them feel safe. Thank you for prioritizing their pleasure. And I love you for being here.
Totally agree. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. Talk to you soon.
Amazing.
Okay, bye.